Hello and welcome to another edition of Ask the Cricketer with Cameron Ponsonby. He's live in Wellington. We've just had day one of the second test. It feels like we've had 3 days worth of cricket in one extraordinary day in Wellington. Just quickly, before we start talking about the unimportant cricket, how are you finding, for those of our viewers perhaps who haven't been to that part of the world, how have you found the last couple of days and today indeed?
New Zealand, it is my favourite country in the world, and I'm not saying that just because I'm here now. I'd have said that before the tour started, and I continue to say that now. And I don't know if this is really allowed as an answer, but actually my favourite day on tour was the travel day. Me and two colleagues, Stefan Schemmelt from the BBC and Vitushan Hantaraja from Cricinfo, got in the car up from Christchurch up to Picton, stopped off some lunch at Kaikoura, and you basically hug the coast all the way up. There's a very comical sat nav instruction when you go on Google Maps, and it says go 277 kilometres and then turn right. And that's how you get from Christchurch to Picton, so which is very easy and very nice. And then you get the ferry across to Wellington, which is kind of 3 hours, and you go through the sounds, and it's stunning and it's beautiful. And you can, if you want, yeah, you'll be watching on YouTube. You can kind of see the hills behind me here in Wellington. It's a spectacularly kind of pretty city. So yeah, I'm not meaning to rub it into everyone, but I'm glad to be here.
I think actually what's great about the view that we've got there is that apart from perhaps the hills just over your right shoulder, the rest of the ground looks pretty like it could really be anywhere. I mean, there's grass banks around. You
Yeah.
know you're in New Zealand, but actually, like, could, could you be in Guildford? Could you be in Kibworth? Could you be in an outground somewhere?
I know. It was the idea is that New Zealand's just a kind of prettier, nicer Scotland. So we could be at. I've been to the Grange, so I can say that we're not at the Grange, but we could be in Scotland. We could be anywhere. It could be nice. It is cold as well at the moment, so it definitely could be Scotland. So yeah, Basin Reserve, 10 out of 10 ground. When we arrived here, kind of all the journalists started listing off their top 5 grounds in the world, which was kind of an indicator that this is kind of a favourite of everyone's to come and visit. It is meant to be like spectacularly windy and cold here when it gets going. Something that made me laugh was ahead of the start of the match, Chris Wokes was chatting, and Chris Wokes was like, well, yeah, obviously I had a stint here as an overseas kind of 12 years ago, so this is like a second home to me. He played one match here, one T20 game, and that was it. But it's a second home, so it's fine. He did quite well. He got 50 in a T20. Played couple of first class games away from here somewhere else. So he did have a little stint here as a Wellington player, but I did enjoy when he was talking about the wins and how you want to use them kind of as with his local knowledge. And I was like, you bowled 2 overs here, mate, 12 years ago. But famously one of the nicest guys in world cricket. So who am I to take the mickey?
Presumably somewhere there's a picture of him as a kid with a Wellington shirt on. You know, it's always been in the blood. So he's always
Absolutely.
wanted to play there.
Absolutely. I've realised as well, I think that's kind of me coming in here, replacing George for a little bit. That's kind of the push and pull we give. He loves Chris Wokes. I come with a bit of Chris Wokes Mickey taking. That's the natural balance of life.
It's like he's here. It's like he's already here. It's like the Chris Stokes chat. You can't get away from him, regardless of who we gainfully employ for these tours. Um, should we talk a little about
Exactly.
the cricket? Because on a dull day of Test cricket, perhaps we would proceed with this nonsense. But actually, it feels perhaps pertinent to talk about some of the stuff we've actually seen. You talked about cold
Absolutely.
conditions. Well, Harry Brook was pretty ice cold today. What was what element of his performance kind of epitomised how good he was and the score that he made?
I think it's very hard to get away from his ability. He hits sixes over extra cover, and that's amazing. No one does that. It's like the hardest shot in the book, and he does it to balls which have no business being struck in that direction. I think it's not irrelevant that of the 5 sixes he hit today, kind of 3 of them came after moments where he'd faced a bit of difficulty from the ball before. Either he'd edged one ball through the cordon for 4. He had charged one delivery and then he'd been bounced and had to get out of the way of a Matt Henry bouncer. He kind of scuffed one to mid on. It just didn't look perfect. And from those moments of kind of slight discomforts, he kind of almost put 2 fingers back up at the opposition and was like, no, I'm in charge here. I kind of dictate the proceedings that's in front of me. He hit 2 balls into the road, which I always think is really funny. I don't care what
Mm.
stadium it is. I don't care how big or small it is. If someone hits the ball out of the ground, that is spectacular and funny. and he hit 2 balls into the kind of roundabout. This stadium is basically situated in the middle of a roundabout. It's a glorified kind of town green, basically. You've got cars running around the outside of it 24/7. You've also got the greatest restaurant named in the world, which over my left shoulder, you can't see it. It's called Choriza, which £100 whoever gets that right. It's a blend of curry and pizza. And they just do these curry-style pizzas. I don't know if I'm going to get one, but if I do, I'll update you on it. And he was just peppering all corners of it. He controlled the area. He walked in at, I think it was 26 for 3. And from a false shot percentage, I love this stat. This was originally provided by Andy Zaltzman of the BBC. He put it into their live text. That in the first 13 overs of England's innings, there'd been 42%. England had played 42% false shots. I know that's not grammatically correct, but I'm sure you follow. And it was in the top 10 kind of highest false shot percentages that cricketers have in their records ever. So for over like 2,500 innings, England were running their luck so hard, and that was the kind of context that Harry Brook entered the crease. What makes it all the funnier is that we'd seen this before. 18 months ago, Harry Brook arrived in Wellington with England. I think it was 21 for 3 at that point, and scored like a match-saving and potentially match-winning century. They obviously went on to lose last time, but he's just a spectacular talent. It's not a case of like whether he's England's future and Joe Root's the present. Like, Harry Brook is England's present right now, and he's been phenomenal once again.
What is interesting, although Harry Brook was exceptional today, and they played a couple of those shots that actually went out of the ground, so it actually meant that a commentator could say out of the ground and not just dropping over the rope. Is that I absolutely hate that? I genuinely do. Is that
Pet peeves.
The way that England batted today? They could easily have been all out for 50, and we could have had. Well, let's put it this way: we could have had a far many questions to answer than we've got for this episode. Yeah. What did you kind of make of that? Because it really was alarming, actually. Particularly Zach Crawley, who appeared to think, well, I'll get out, I'll try and get myself out before someone else does it for me.
It's weird. So only Brook and Pope got more than 20 today out of all the England batters. They were 26 for 3, 43 for 4, and then once Brook was dismissed, they lost their final 4 wickets. I think it was in about 14 balls. So either side of this 170-run partnership, the wickets were tumbling. The Zach Crawley innings was remarkable. And, I mean, from my perspective, incredibly fun and funny. I enjoy those things. He's come in, because his record over the past 18 months, he batted very well in India, but he batted very well against Australia last summer. We've kind of gone under the radar a little bit that as of late, he hasn't actually been performing that well. So kind of Ben Stokes replies to the question of like, Crawley averages 10 against New Zealand. What do you think about that? He goes, well, he averages 40 in the last 18 months. Like, let's all carry on. But it felt like his innings today, he'd paid attention to that, because I've seen Zach Crawley bat a lot now, and he doesn't always bat like that. He isn't as frenetic and skittish as that. Yes, he plays his big booming cover drives, but he played out this genuinely remarkable maiden over to Matt Henry, where I think he ran at him twice, missed it twice, got hit once. He'd played 17 shots across the over and no runs had been scored, and he was eventually bowled by one which just nips back. It doesn't look, if you're going to go and watch the highlights, it's not going to look that impressive. You're going to say, oh, he's kind of missed a straight one there. But until that moment, Henry had been getting the ball kind of shape away a lot. So I think it was a good piece of bowling. But he was so helter-skelter. He hit a 6 off Tim Southey in the first over of the day. First time a seamer has ever been hit for a 6 in the first over of a test match. And it weirdly didn't inspire me with confidence. I went, oh, we're doing this. Okay, fine. Rather than it being a showcase of dominance, to me it was a showcase of like a guy who seemed to be aware of this stat that was following around a bit, where I don't think it should. Like, yeah, he got 2 low scores in the first test match, but like getting out to New Zealand when you were batting badly 18 months ago, 2 months ago, is so much further an indication of your current abilities than how you have played in more recent times. But yeah, it was a sign of things to come, because then Ben Duckett and Joe Root followed him shortly after.
What was funny about the ball that Henry eventually got Crawley with was that it was a much better ball than it needed to be, than it ever needed to be. Like his wicket did not. I wrote that the value of the delivery far outweighed the value that Crawley put on his own wicket. and it was a,
Yeah.
it genuinely was. You get those kind of balls where you think, oh, that would have got any batsman out in the world, or any batter in the world, or if he was better, he would have been able to hit that and all that sort of nonsense. Well, this one, it didn't need to be as good to get Crawley. Frankly, a half tracker would probably have done the job as well. Just one quickly, just try and move on just quickly to Bryden Cast, who had a let's say eventful evening session. He was absolutely, the ball was following him. He was following the ball. He was doing everything out there. I mean, it was sort of a remarkable, I guess, change of fortunes, and I guess just another reminder of this game. It's always offering opportunity, isn't it?
Well, he almost did something wrong for the first time in an England shirt, and then he clean bowled Kane Williamson with an absolute beauty. Kind of got it shaping away. I've seen somewhere. Apparently, Brook said in his press conference that it was like 93 miles an hour. I want that checked because I don't think it was that quick. But nevertheless, he's clean bowled Kane Williamson. It was amazing. It was a huge wicket, and he'd overstepped. And it was this moment of kind of disaster. England have given Williamson this opportunity to go on, and having been bowled out for 280, it could really punish them. They could be in a case where they deeply regret that and they potentially lose the match as a result. But then he kind of returns to this kind of perfect, unstoppable start to his career where he takes this incredible diving catch at short mid-wicket where he sprints in from a shortish mid-wicket. The ball's taken the inside edge of Ravindra's bat, ballooned up off his thigh pad, and he scoops the ball up off the turf from kind of a full-length dive, and it was a brilliant kind of moment of fielding and athleticism. He then gets the ball back in his hand and finishes off the day with a double strike to get Williamson properly this time and Daryl Mitchell to leave New Zealand. I think, like, because it all happened so quickly at the end of the day, and because New Zealand started the day so well and England started the day so poorly, it's hard to reframe your mind from that moment in time where you go, oh, England are struggling here. England have pretty much won this test match. Like, very, very, very few matches are won from 200 behind, 5 down. So it's kind of like this intervention that Cast had at the end of the day. Had it happened at 1 p.m, you might hear and read a lot more about it because people would have started writing the story. And Brook, if Brook had got about 40 runs less or whatever. But it was a vitally important contribution in the context both of this match and this series. And it's pretty much meant that England, as long as they play the rest of this match on autopilot and don't kind of proactively muck things up, should leave here 2-0 winners.
My absolutely favourite moment of the day was Will O'Rourke coming in as the night watch for Tom Blundell, and then Tom Blundell having to bat anyway. It was a fantastic way.
God.
I mean, surely you pack away. You got to come back in anyway. That doesn't particularly make a great deal of sense.
I think it was a really damning insight. Feels too strong, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Of like where Blundell is at the moment, he's out of form. So we were discussing in the kind of press box at the halfway point, going like, it's 280 under par from England, and you go, yeah, it is under par. Like you needed more runs than that, and then you go, hang on, like 3 of New Zealand's top 7 have not scored a run of late. They're really struggling in Conway, Latham, and Blundell, and then with 20 minutes left of the day, which is quite a long time, New Zealand lose this wicket and outworks Will O'Rourke rather than Blundell, and you go, mate, that is the decision of someone who's struggling and goes, that 20 minutes is trickier than it should be in the kind of normal context of form. Then Daryl Mitchell gets out, he has to bat anyway, and there was a genuinely, I felt, very real possibility that New Zealand finished today like 7 down, because O'Rourke, bless him, he's a trier, but he's not a batter. He could have gone at any point, and Blundell was really, really struggling. They're in a lot of trouble, New Zealand, because presumably O'Rourke goes early tomorrow morning, and then you're Glenn Phillips. You're basically needing 200 runs from Blundell, Phillips, and Smith. That's what you're after, or a Tim Southey special. Like, England are really, really in control of this match.
Just one more before I let you go to your curry pizza or what on earth you've got planned for the rest of the.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you might as well get the first of the 5 in. I want to try and make you look as silly as possible during what remains of this series. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow, just so I can bring it up just at a random occasion, say, I don't know, tomorrow's video?
I'm already 0 from 1 for this. I thought today had a feeling of like a 120 all out for England day, where just like stupid things happened and they kind of crumbled in a heap. And to be honest, at 20 for 3, I wasn't.
I think that's a good prediction given what actually happened. That's pretty close to what nearly happened. To be honest, I think that's not that.
Okay. I'll take that. I think New Zealand could end up 110, 120 all out, and then England just do back mentally, just they go insane because they're going to have like a lead of about 160 and they're going to go, we can have so much fun here. This day, if it follows the pattern I've just laid out, does not go anywhere near day 4. I think whatever, I'll put it this way, and this is a very safe bet and nice and fenced city, whatever happens is going to happen quickly. There's not, I'd love it. I always want a decider. That's where I rest. That's where I end up every single time. I wanted New Zealand to win this test match because I wanted to go to Hamilton at 1-1. And if we do see that, we're about to see something spectacular. I predict, however, that will be done within 3 days. And it's all going to happen in a hurry.
Whatever happens will happen quickly. Sounds like something that might happen after you have one of those pizzas.
That's tough. And if it does happen, I won't update you in that respect. I'll keep that stum. The curries are fine. One of their pizzas is called Deli Belly, which I find quite a funny kind of rebrand. They're kind of taking back control of the messaging. It's good stuff.